What do we have here? We got 4 fucking sweet knives, man. We got the Twosun, I think it's a TS64, or I forget. I'll put it up here if I didn't get it right. This is the Kizer Critical, the full-size titanium one. We got the Kizer T1, which is a great knife. You don't hear enough about that one. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a plain Jane, but man, it's a really well-made knife. Each one of these has a little bit of an issue. This one, we get the Rike, I think it's a 1902? Yeah, 1902. If you hear some sounds in the background, that is some sharpening going on down here in the Iowa Knife Museum bunker. So, you know, they let me record down here, but, you know, shit has to keep going on. Stuff goes on. Each one of these has a little issue. The Twosun, the lock bar is just a little bit strong. So it's a little bit hard to deploy, a little tiny bit. I did a little bit of a detent ramp on it, which helped. But I'm thinking I'm going to try to move that lock bar, just give it a little adjustment to the out, and see if it makes it a little more drop shutty, a little more easy to deploy. We'll see. This guy has the opposite issue. The deploy is a little too easy. Let's see if I can. Yeah, so you can just kind of throw it down and have it pop out. And the flipper is just a little bit anemic. And I think it's because that lock bar could be pressed in a little bit further. And it's plenty drop shutty, so I don't care if it becomes slightly less drop shutty. So we're going to try that on that one. This one has some lock rock. So we might push the bar in, or we might just do a little trick where we move the steel insert up a bit so that it hits the tang of the blade earlier. So, and then this guy, real strong lock bar that needs to be pushed out just a bit. So we'll get these guys taken apart. And oh, before I even do that, I took some pictures, and this is what you want to do. Before you make any lock bar adjustments, you want to take a picture, a nice clear picture straight down, looking at how far over the lock bar goes. Because you want to make sure that your lock bar moves in at least this far plus a little bit more, even after you've adjusted it, or else you'll cause lock rock. If you adjust it out to make it lighter, and you have it out, you know, past this point to the left, it's never going to lock up right. So you have to be careful with that. You have to take some measurements and look at it real carefully and make sure you don't go too far with it. So here's some pictures of the other lockups of the knives while I take the knives apart. And then when we drop back in, they'll all be apart. And then we'll do stuff. So I'm going to start out with this Kizer T1 here, because it probably would be the trickiest one, since we got to actually take this steel insert and just move it forward a hair. How do we do that? Well, first we got to take it out, and then we got to see what we need to do, what we need to cut and adjust. See, it has these various little turns in it to where if you were to try to push it forward, it's not going to go very easily. So you have to kind of maybe grind down that little corner there so that it's able to push forward. So we're going to take it out and see what we need to do. So I usually use a little bit of copper wire, a real thin piece of copper wire, but this spider wire fishing line was available, and I figured it would smush in there, and it has. But before I got it to do that, I actually did grind away a little bit on this face of this part and also on this face of that part right there, so that the whole thing would be able to move forward just a hair. And it looks like it's going to be good. I tightened it up real good, and the string is stuck in there, so I just got to cut the string off now with a razor blade, nice and flush. And if you were to look down inside there, you'd still be able to see a little bit of that blue showing. And when I use the copper wire, sometimes you can see the copper wire showing a little bit down there, but you know, normal operation of the knife, you're not really going to see it. So we'll get that cut off, we'll get it back together and see if we push that lock face, the insert, forward enough to where now it interacts with the blade earlier and stops that lock rock.
Maybe explain it a little better. So far you've jammed some fishing line into your knife, for no apparent reason.
Okay, fine. So I ground the little insert so that it was able to be moved forward and backward just a little bit. And then I took that piece of fishing line and put it in behind it and then put it in. And that jams it forward as far as it can go, basically, and then I tighten the screws in so that holds it in place there. So I trimmed off the excess blue cord with a razor knife, so you can see, you won't really be able to see it from outside much. So we're going to get it back together, clean it up a little bit first, because man, it is dirty as a Frenchman.
That's racist as hell.
Well, no, because French isn't a race, so no, that wouldn't be right.
Interesting. So it's okay to make fun of the French, except for Jacques Cousteau.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Cool. All right, we'll get this thing cleaned up. We'll get back, well, I don't know. I probably won't video it getting put back together. It's just a knife. It goes back together really easy, just like normal. These are such small changes, right? Tiny, tiny changes to the mechanism of a silly little pocket knife. Just like spending hours learning how to do this stupid shit to where I can move this steel insert up a few thousandths to where now it locks up perfectly, and it's only going in maybe 25% or so. And the lockup is perfect, and there's no play anymore, and there's no lock rock. And when you open it, and it's not quite as drop shutty as it was, but that's okay. It's really close anyway. I think it probably would get there eventually if you were messing with it. But it's just perfectly set up now, perfectly centered. It doesn't fly open anymore now. These minor changes, man, they can make from a knife that's nobody would really want because it just doesn't feel right to a knife that is just really nice and awesome. What do we got now? Let's look at this Rike. I need to take a look at the picture I took so I can see what we need to do, how far out I can bend it, because man, it doesn't look like I can bend it out far. Such a strong lock bar. It's going to be tricky to get it just right. All right, I'm going to look at the picture. Let's see. So I had to go a different way with this Rike knife because this steel insert, I don't know if it's glued in because the washer that was right there was glued in. Maybe it's glued in, but whatever. I took the screw out. I tried to use the screw as a knocker to knock it out. I tried to pry up under it with stuff. I couldn't get it to move. It's just set in there. So I can't push the lock bar out any further because it keeps hitting right there where the over travel stop is on the insert. So what I did instead was I tried to weaken the lock bar a little bit with a little grinding right here. So it's hidden away so you can't see it, you know, even from the outside looking down in, you can't really see it. But hopefully that'll give a little less pressure on the lock bar. Maybe, 10% less material there at that point. So, I also gave it just a little tiny bit of a bevel along this edge so it's not so pointy where your thumb goes. So we'll see if that does it. We'll get it back together, and again, those little differences, man. This thing is now all but drop shutty. It's like that hydraulic drop shutty that you like. That's just from removing a little bit of material from under that point in the lock bar where it gets thinner to make it even thinner. You can, I don't know if you can really see, but you saw it before. And now the lock bar is just that much weaker to where it can let the blade fall. It was dirty as shit too. And I think maybe somebody after they bought it put some super glue or something in everything. There's super glue all over the place in it, but we got that cleaned out. Everything's clean now. It even has a little bit better sound because I think the dirt and grease in it was just making it kind of quieter. So now it has a little more of a ting to it. Very nice. All right, so we will finish up these other two next time, but I thought I'd just get this one in there and talk about it real quick and tell you that it worked great. Couldn't be happier with it. Exactly what I was looking for, just a little more drop shuttiness, a little more ease of opening too. It was just a little bit, you couldn't thumb open it hardly at all because that lock bar was just pressing too hard on the detent. Well, the detent ball in the lock bar was pressing too hard into the blade to where you couldn't open it easy enough to open it with your thumb. It's still not easy, but you can do it now. Before it was just like, and it just wouldn't ever work. So I think with a little practice, I can probably get it now. Reverse flick's way better. That's way better. Everything's way better on it now, just from a little adjustment. And let's see, is the lockup? I didn't even check the lockup. Yeah, lockup's still solid. No problem with that, because I didn't actually bend the lock bar out any, so it's still the same. It goes into the same point that it used to, just with slightly less pressure because of that little removal of material there. All right, now have a nice day.
In part 2, Pry Bar will tackle these other two pain in the asses.